Well, I think the first thing is to not think in terms of publishing to multiple devices. Instead, we can look to the model that NPR has espoused so well. They follow the acronym Create Once, Publish Everywhere, or COPE. I think that that's a little bit of a misnomer, and I would instead encourage universities to maybe shift the acronym to COPA, like Copacabana, to create once, publish appropriately. So create their content in a very modular way, not thinking in terms of pages or anything like that, but instead to think in terms of content chunks at a very kind of discrete and atomic level, I guess, that then they can create in a device neutral way, and then from that point move forward and deploy it through an appropriate taxonomy and tagging scheme across all of the different devices that a student or parent or prospective student might use to access that content. Because if a university is struggling with the idea of how are they going to be working in this new context of responsive design, and how are they going to be keeping up with it, how are they going to be keeping up with all these different devices, the bigger issue there is they shouldn't be worrying about keeping up with lots of devices, because they're just going to keep on coming. There's going to be ways to navigate their content that we haven't even dreamt up yet. So instead, they should be thinking more in terms of how they can be creating their content in a more modular way so that it can move easily and nimbly across whatever devices someone might use to access it.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that in addition to really thinking through how to make your content ready to share anywhere and everywhere, keeping tabs on what the different particular higher education audiences, what channels they're using for what kinds of purposes and tasks. So for example, we know that tablets are geared well for that kind of laid back experience, browsing through more editorial kinds of content to research decisions. We know that for retail, we know that for health. It makes sense that if someone was considering a higher education program, like getting ready to get their MBA, they might kind of use the tablet to help them get information to research their decision. And so, you wouldn't want to get necessarily device specific, like iPad specific, but you might want to think through categories of devices, types of channels, and what content you want to emphasize the most. So you want your content to always be ready and available to scatter and gather wherever you might need it. But I think there's also some merit in thinking through for certain experiences, like tablet versus your phone, what content is going to be most important, what tasks are going to be most common, and really plan the experience with your content and the strategy for the experience with your content, I should say, appropriately. So what you emphasize on your mobile phone, or I should say your website optimized for a mobile phone might be different than the site kind of optimized for your tablet. You might even consider a tablet application that's special, that's unique, that offers something different than other aspects of your mobile experience.
I was just going to ask though, do you think, isn't there also a challenge with that though, of maybe making inaccurate assumptions? I guess like using like the tablet example, yeah, great for kind of like sitting on your couch and flipping through maybe a view book or something like that is very in line with that kind of flipping mechanism. But at the same time, I feel like more and more I'm also seeing people that use their tablet for navigating a real world experience. In some museums, you can even check them out when you go into a special exhibit to use that to kind of navigate navigate your way through, see what's in the next room, get more information about the thing in front of you.
Sure.
That's also on different iPhone and Android platforms as well. So I guess to think in terms of how to support the user that's in that mobile context, there's always the challenge then of somebody that's pulling out their tablet, not when they're at home, but rather now on campus and saying, okay, I'm doing the campus tour, maybe it's a self-guided tour.
Right, and that would probably be its own application. And there's a lot of research around use of tablets and really all the mobile devices. But I think there is some merit in understanding what are those, maybe not individual devices, but categories of devices used most commonly for. And you can't predict the exact context in which someone's going to be using a mobile phone and someone's going to be using a tablet, but you can get a sense from the data what the most common uses are, what are the most common scenarios. And if you're really having to think strategically about what the experience with your content is going to be, I don't think it's very strategic to make all of your content available to every single, mobile experience. And that comes from my experience with marketing in a lot of companies, and I'm sort of applying that, experience to higher ed. Now, if it's a lot of time and expense and effort to create a little bit of differentiation between the mobile experiences for higher ed, then of course, you might want to think twice about it. But in my experience, usually it's not. If you're from the start making your content easy to separate and reuse, if it's modular, then it should be pretty easy to bring together different pieces of content into different experiences. And you can really kind of make the most of the fact that we have all these different touch points and